For those who don't know me, my name is Jordan Maybon. I live here in the area, grew up here. I have a beautiful wife, Carolyn, and our two sweet daughters, Cora, who's 7, and Petra, or PJ, as we call her, who's 4. And they are just my whole world. I absolutely love them. I am a recovery coach. I myself am a recovering addict as well. So to talk about what brings me here to this event, talking to you guys, it's actually pretty special. The date that it landed on. Today is January 31st, 2024. Exactly 4 years ago today, to the day, I checked myself into a detox center down in Utah. If you guys don't know what a detox center is, it's alcoholics or addicts who are going to go into rehab. Before you go to rehab, you'll get checked into a detox center to cleanse your body of everything. This is cool lighting. This is awesome. This is setting the mood. I lost where I was at. Oh, detox center. To cleanse your body of whatever drugs or substances are in your system. Getting off of any drug is really uncomfortable. But there's a couple that are, it's actually lethal. It can be deadly. Alcohol is one, and benzodiazepines. That's your Xanax and Valium. Those can also be deadly if you stop those cold turkey without medical supervision. So you go to this place. It's just like this beautiful, magical place that reminds me of probably what hell is like, I think. And it's like the worst 3 days of my life, but it was also the beginning of a beautiful journey. I guess to talk about what got me to that point, to where I had to go to detox and rehab. I struggled with addiction from a very young age, surprisingly, about 11, 12 years old. So for most of my life. However, the last 10 years leading up to this, it had gotten really bad. I carried a backpack around with me all the time. Those of you who know me, you probably remember seeing me. I always had my backpack everywhere I went. And inside that backpack was like my little pharmacy, right? I had a drug for everything. If I was tired, I had something I could take. If I was too anxious, I had something. If I felt any kind of pain, I had something I could take. And it had just completely consumed my life. It was the first thing I thought of when I woke up in the morning was, what am I going to take? What's the dosage I'm going to take? How long is that going to last me? And what do I need to have ready to take after that? Where am I going to be at? And how am I going to, sneak away to take that? I had to reevaluate that about every 30 minutes throughout my whole day. And this isn't, I'm not trying to tell a sob story here, but it got exhausting, right? And it got to the point where my life was starting to crumble. It was just unmanageable. I came this close to losing my wife and my 2 little girls, this close to losing my job and ruining my career, and came really close to losing my sanity. When you're taking that many drugs for that long of a period of time, you start to lose touch with reality, and you're hallucinating. And I was in a really, really bad spot, and I never thought that I would get out. I had honestly just accepted that this is it. This is what the rest of my life is going to be like. And now here we are 4 years later, and I'm here talking to you guys at an event like this, and I'm so grateful to be here. And it's a miracle, and it's a miracle that's accessible to anybody who's willing to seek help. So that's what brings me here. After I got clean, I decided that I wanted to help others do the same thing. I experienced this transformation in my life. I didn't know what I was missing in with sobriety. It was amazing. And I thought back to my addiction and how terrible and dark it was, and I just wanted to help other people get out of that dark hole. So I decided I was going to become a recovery coach. So I did my studying, I took my classes, I took the tests, I got certified as a recovery coach, and I was lucky enough to be selected for a pilot program for the Department of Health and Welfare on the mobile crisis unit, to be the first recovery coach on MCU. And I was able to respond to some calls with the police departments, to mental health calls, or people who, anything involving drugs or addiction, and saw some really sad things. But I was also able to really help some people. And it was just an incredible experience. I did that for about a year. When I was done with that, I realized I wanted to stay involved. So I always looked for different ways to do things like this. I found Connection is the Cure, and absolutely fell in love with what they were doing. And so I try to stay involved as much as I can. So that's what brings me here today. Let's jump into this. At any point, if anybody gets bored, just yell out dance or something, and I'll just do a little dance. Okay, I know it's the end of the day, so if you need it, they've already got the lights for me, so I'll do something for you if you need. But so let's talk about addiction real quick. We're just going to take it to the. My brother was about to yell it. Let's take it back to the basics, right? What is addiction? Does anybody know? Can anybody throw out a definition? Okay, I put you guys on the spot. Okay, so addiction is a disorder or a disease that causes somebody to repeatedly and compulsively engage in a behavior despite the negative consequences. Okay, so I think addiction is kind of a misunderstood topic, and so I want to kind of clear a couple of things up, but as far as understanding addiction, when we read that, what I just read there, despite the negative consequences. So if any of you know somebody who is an addict, raise your hand if you know somebody who's been affected by addiction, right? All of us in here, right? So if you ever look at their life and you see the choices that they're making, and then you're thinking to yourself, why do they keep doing this? After all that's happened, after all the bad things that have happened in their life, after all the people that they've hurt, why are they still doing this? Why do they keep doing this? Well, I want you to know that the addict is thinking the same thing. Why do I keep doing this? Right? They don't want to hurt people. They don't want to do those things. And I'm not excusing bad behavior from addicts, right? It doesn't make it right. But I just want to help you understand that addiction can actually take away your freedom to choose, right? So they're asking themselves the same question. After all that I've done, after all the people that I've hurt, why am I still doing this? Okay, they have the same question. They just don't know where to turn. They don't know how to get help. So let's talk about a little more scientifically, what is addiction? So as far as what goes on in the brain. And there's a few different factors to addiction, but one of them is a chemical imbalance in your brain, right? And we're going to dive a little bit deeper into this in a minute, but you guys are familiar with the chemicals in your brain, the feel-good chemicals, the neurotransmitters. You have your dopamine, serotonin, norepinephrine, right? So a lot of times when you look at somebody who's an addict or who's even prone to addiction, they'll often have depression and ADHD and anxiety, right? ADHD is a deficiency of dopamine in your brain. Depression is a deficiency of serotonin in your brain. Okay, an addict typically has a deficiency of all three of those things. Okay, and we're going to talk about how to combat that chemical imbalance in a little bit with some really cool stuff. But addiction is all around us, right? It's all too prevalent, and it's not just drugs or alcohol, right? You can be addicted to food. You can be addicted to sex, pornography, right? There's lots of things you can be addicted to. How about this one? Comfort. How many of you are addicted to comfort? Right? I feel that all the time. And comfort is nice to feel sometimes, but comfort can also rob you of your divine potential. Now, real quick, let's go ahead and dive into crisis intervention. So when you hear that, crisis intervention, a lot of you are like, what does that have to do with me? When am I going to have to use that? I want you to know these 7 steps of crisis intervention are for everybody. You can use it in any situation, whether you come across a stranger who looks distressed or your child is having a hard time. You can use these steps in a lot of situations to turn a bad situation into a manageable situation. So feel free if you want to write these down in your phone or whatever. But the 7 steps of crisis intervention are: number 1, assess the affected person. Right? So you never want to go into a situation without assessing it and knowing what you're getting into. So number 1 is assess the affected person. Number 2, establish a relationship. If it's a family member, obviously you already have a relationship, you build upon that relationship, right? Number 2 is establish a relationship. Number 3, understand the problem. In parentheses next to that one I have validate. How important is that in communication, right? One thing that addicts and people with suicidal ideation always struggle with is they don't feel understood, right? They don't feel understood. So validating a person's problem is a huge step to getting them to feel loved and to calm down and take a step back, which leads to the next step. The 4th step is to confront emotions. Now they're in a place where they can confront their emotions. It's really hard to confront our emotions. We have a hard time with that even as adults, right? It can be even harder to try to get somebody else to confront their emotions. But that's the 4th step. The 5th step is explore coping strategies. Okay? Open up with them. Let them give you some ideas of exploring coping strategies. Help them to feel involved in the process. That way, it's not you telling them what to do to change. It's an open conversation of, let me hear what you think. Your opinion is valued. Let me hear what you think. Number 6, implement a plan. Okay, this is where resources come in handy. In parentheses next to this one, I have resources. Implement a plan with resources. Resources can be friends, family, a recovery coach, a sponsor, a rehab center. Connection is the Cure, right? The Department of Health and Welfare has lots of resources. They're everywhere. It's just that most people don't know where to find them. If you go to the Connection is the Cure website, there's actually a full page of resources on there. It's a fantastic resource to find other resources to connect people to. The 7th and final step is follow up. Okay, that's huge. How many times do you make a plan to, I don't know, go to the gym and get in shape or whatever, and then like 3 days later you fall off the train, right? You have to follow up with that person and continually follow up with them. Follow up with them until they are in a better place, okay? So those are the 7 steps of crisis intervention. You read my mind. Thank you so much. You're awesome. Those are the 7 steps. If you didn't get those written down, you can come see me afterwards and I'll give them to you. This is going quick. I got to speed up here. I want to take the last few minutes to talk about mental health. Okay, raise your hand if you struggle with any type of mental health challenges. Most of us, right? So I want to go back to my story. We're going to rewind a little bit farther, all the way back to when I was just a little guy, and I was a cute little guy, right? Family. And I had a challenging childhood. And I know many of us did. I know I'm not unique in that way, but I had a really challenging childhood. And I was a good kid. I grew up in a good family. You know, we went to church every Sunday. I had everything I needed, but I felt like things were missing. I had a lot of mental health challenges. I had depression. I was sad a lot, right? I had ADHD. I had OCD, like the whole alphabet, right? I had, along with that, I had tics, right? So like involuntary movements or sounds that I would make. That was probably the hardest one, to be in school with kids who don't know any better. And I got made fun of a lot in school. Even being out in public in a grocery store, you know, when I would have these tics, and then I would have strangers just like staring at me. And it was really hard, and that did not do good things for my self-esteem and my confidence and my depression. So I thought one of two things, only two logical answers I could think of, was that God messed up when he made me, or I had done something wrong and God was punishing me for that, but I didn't know what that would be. And I carried that around with me my whole childhood, which is pretty heavy and pretty dark. And I remember one time, I was maybe around 11 or 12, I can't remember the exact age, somewhere in there, but I had my wisdom teeth removed. Jamal, you know what I'm talking about, that's you tomorrow. I had my wisdom teeth removed, and it was the first procedure or surgery of any kind that I'd had. And so we got done. The doctor wrote a prescription for Norco, Vicodin, right? So we brought that home. I had no idea what it was. I just knew it was a painkiller. I figured it was like Tylenol or ibuprofen, but stronger, right? So as we got home and the numbness started to wear off, and my mouth is like in pain, right? And I'm like, well, I'm glad that he gave me that pain medication. So I went over and took a couple of them, not knowing what to expect. And I sit down at the dinner table, and my mom had just made a bowl of soup, and I remember this pretty vividly. I think it was tomato soup or cheesy potato soup. Do you remember, Mom? She doesn't remember. But that's not important. So I sit down, I'm eating my soup, and I remember the exact moment that medication kicked in. And not only did it take away my physical pain, but it took away all of that emotional pain that I carried with me throughout my childhood. And I thought to myself, this must be what it feels like to be happy. I thought, this must be what other people feel like. This is what I've been missing. Another common misconception with addiction is that, it's their fault. They went out and experimented with drugs. That wasn't the case for me, and it's not the case for a lot of people. I just was given a prescription and I took it, and from that moment on, my brain was on a mission to seek out substances and consume them to feel happy. I was missing that feeling, and that's when it all began. Fast forward to today, I still struggle with a lot of those things. ADHD is like through the roof. You can ask my wife, right? Depression, anxiety. I still struggle with these things, but over the years I've learned a lot of techniques and coping mechanisms and things to deal with them, and to live life with these things and not let them ruin my life or deter me from my goals. So I'm going to give you a secret formula, and I know we're running out of time. I'm going to try to rush through this, but this is awesome. Okay, a couple of weeks ago I tested this out and it worked fantastically. So I woke up and I was just having one of those mornings where it was dark and cloudy and cold outside, and I had no motivation, right? And I just felt really depressed. I had so much stuff to do. I had a whole list of things to do, and every time I thought about it, it was just like this crushing weight on me, and I just like moped around all morning. You guys ever had a day like that before? I'm sure you guys have. But it's just like the worst morning ever, and I remember I crawled back into bed at like 11:30 a.m., and I hadn't done anything with my day yet. And then I remembered something that I had heard a few days before, and it's very simple, but it was just nothing will change if you don't change, right? So I realized that I was in control. I had to do something different. If I wanted to change the course of my day, it was up to me. So I put together this little plan, this 3-part formula, and I was like, I'm going to give it a shot. So the first thing was to take a cold shower. So I ran over to the shower. I started hot just to get myself in there, and then I slowly cranked it to cold, right? And cranked it all the way to cold, and it was like taking my breath away, and it felt so good. The endorphins were just like going crazy in my brain. I think I was like screaming in the shower. My wife was probably like, what is going on? I don't know. But she's used to weird stuff now with me. But so I get out of the shower. I feel fantastic. I'm like, okay, on to number 2. Okay, this is the second step to the formula, is intense exercise. Okay, so I went to the gym. I was like, I'm just going to hit it hard for 30 to 60 minutes, right? So I was like, what's the worst possible thing I could do? Leg day. Okay, so I'll do some legs. And I got after it. I went super hard and got done with that, and I felt fantastic. And I was like, okay, I got 1 step left in the formula. I went home. I picked the most daunting task on my to-do list that's been lingering for probably 3 or 4 weeks. It was like keeping me up at night, right? Every time I thought about it, I felt sick to my stomach. And I was like, I'm going to sit down no matter how long it takes, and I'm going to get this one thing done. So I sit down, I'm ready to go, I get started on it. Guess how long it took me? 6 minutes. 6 minutes, and it was done, right? Like, why do we do that to ourselves? We carry these things around for so long, and then when you finally get around to doing it, it's like nothing. Even if it would have taken me an hour, it would have saved me all that stress, right? So, then as soon as I got done, I was like, I did it. Let's go sit on the couch or eat a cheeseburger or something. And then I was like, no, let's keep this momentum. And so I continued to go through my checklist, and I wiped it all out. And I turned one of the worst days I've ever had into the best day that I had had in months. Okay, so the moral of that story is we have control over our feelings and our thoughts. We have control over our actions. You have control over your day, right? And if you can control each day, you have control of your life, right? Sometimes it feels like we're out of control, but you just have to put yourself back in the driver's seat and just win one day at a time, and you'll make it through your life, right? I was going to listen to a song with you guys, but we're out of time, so we'll go ahead and skip that. But if you ever want to listen to it, it's called Skin by 6 a.m. Anybody know Nikki Sixx? Motley Crue? Okay, there we go. So he was a heroin addict for a long time, right? I don't know if you ever read his book, The Heroin Diaries. It's a really crazy story. But he ended up getting clean, and he left the band and started a new band called 6 a.m. And they only sing songs now about addiction recovery and hope. And so they have a song called Skin. It's one of my favorite songs ever. If you get a chance to listen to it, it's one of the things that made me want to become a recovery coach and reach out to people. And basically the point of the song is that beneath the skin, everybody has an angel inside, right? So you look past their scars, you look past their past, but also yourself. When you're thinking of yourself, look past your mistakes and find the angel inside. And that's the purpose of the song. So real quick, I have a mentor that told me a little while ago. He was talking about our trials. And I used to ask myself all the time, like, why me? Why do I have to struggle with addiction and mental health and ADHD and tics and all this stuff? Like, what did I do to deserve this? I used to ask myself that question all the time. But my mentor told me, he said, I look at trials as a curriculum. And when each of us come to this life, we're each given a curriculum, something to learn. And he said, my curriculum just so happened to be addiction, and it was just what I needed. And that changed something in my mind when I heard that. Changed the way that I looked at my trials, right? I experienced those things for a reason. God gives us those trials so that we can become the best version of ourselves, so that we can become who He wants and needs us to be. A friend of mine, Amberly Lago, she said this once, and I loved it, and I had to write it down. She said, soon your time will come, and when it does, your whole journey will make sense. And that really clicked for me, because after I got clean, and after I went through that recovery process, and now living the life that I am, my whole journey makes sense. I understand why I went through it all, and it was just what I needed, right? I want to give you a challenge real quick before we get out of here. We're just about done. I want to give you a challenge though. Tomorrow, I want you to do 3 things. I want you to connect, okay, in 3 different ways. I want you to do something to connect with yourself. I want you to do something to connect with somebody else. And I want you to do something to connect with your higher power, whether that's God or the universe, whoever, whatever that is. Make those 3 connections, and I promise you, if you do that on a daily basis, you will see miraculous changes in your life. Thank you so much for coming, guys. I really appreciate it. Have a great night.